Welcome to How's Your E-Presence? This show is produced by Business RadioX, and I am Mark Galvin, the founder and president of ePresence. We are a social media marketing firm, and we are coming to you live from the Subaru of Gwinnett studio inside the Sonesta Gwinnett Place Atlanta Hotel. Welcome and thanks for being here. It's always great to be back here at Business RadioX. As you guys know, we do a lot of these shows from my basement. And so it's fun to be here with Mike Salmon and Amanda. And I tell you what, it's also nice to get out and see a little bit of sunshine and meet people and see more and more folks milling about. So glad you are here with us. Make sure you catch any of our shows anytime. We're going to drop all these shows on any podcast channel. So if you've found us and you want to look for us again, just go out there and look for us as How's Your E-Presence? We are everywhere. We're glad you're here to discover more about ways to solve marketing issues, because that's what we do here. We want to answer the burning questions that businesses have, and every show is teed up with a question. So, for example, how do I lower my acquisition costs? Or how do I build a brand to develop a logo? We are always interested in answering those questions for you, and you can respond right on the channel, whatever channel you're listening to, or simply send us a message. As a matter of fact, I am right on, since this is a live show, I am on my Twitter account. If you want to send me a direct message and want to ask a question, you can. My handle on Twitter is ePresenceMG. So ePresence, M for Mark, G for Galvin. You can send me a message there, and I will ask your question if you want me to pose that to our guest today. Or always go back to our website. You can find our website at epresence.me. That's epresence.me, because it's all about you. All right, so we're going to get into the show today, and I'm very excited because our guest today is Erin Goodier, and I do want everybody out there to know I'm saying it right. Aren't I, Erin?
Yes. Yeah. No, you got it.
So Erin is with Goodier Creative, and when I first met you, Erin, I pronounced your name Goodier, and you did not correct me.
I don't hate it.
You pronounce it Goodier, right?
Yeah. My mom always says it's like good ear, so Goodier.
I was going to say like Goodyear,
people always think I'm saying Goodyear. Yeah.
Why isn't it Goodier? I'm just curious.
I think it's maybe French, or it's not French. It's probably like German or something. Okay. Or maybe the Goodyears have been in the U.S. for too long and they've forgotten their French roots. I'm not sure. Yeah.
Well, and I know a little bit of history. The French and the Germans don't necessarily like each other, so I can certainly see how that would come about. Well, you are a professional videographer. You've spent time with the United Nations, the United Nations Foundation, and Arthur Blank's Family Foundation. Yeah. When you were with the United Nations and Arthur Blank, what did you do?
I was their in-house videographer for both. I was their kind of go-to person for all things video. So that just included any type of events they had to do or social media, all that stuff. I was capturing their footage and putting it together.
So I'm going to ask you an obvious question.
Yeah.
Why did they care? Why did they want to do video? What was the messaging they wanted to put out there?
For them, both organizations are really big about lifting up the stories of their grantees and the people that they're working with.
Got it.
And so for them, it's really important for them to share their stories of the people they're working with so that it gets more traction for their grantees and more views for everything, so that they can use their influence to help the grantees that are working with.
So there is and it's not obvious if I am not involved with the Arthur Blank Family Foundation, but I'm a target. You could communicate with me and tell me that story and get me hooked.
Yeah.
Like, oh wow, this is something I could get.
I
could really buy into.
Yes, definitely.
All right, so. You went to some school up in, close to D.C. What school was that?
The University of Virginia.
So why didn't you go to Virginia Tech? No, you don't have to answer that.
That'll be a long debate.
That's right. So UVA and did you go for something in this space at UVA? What was it?
So I was media studies, which is like their communications major, but I did a concentration in film. But I always say really what I did was watch movies and write essays about it. I didn't learn how to do what I do on a day-to-day basis there.
Right.
Learn more of the theory. I, meanwhile, was filming weddings, and that's actually how I learned how to do the camera work that I know how to do now.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So you and I had a lunch not too long ago, and we sat down, and I think the entire lunch we talked about movies.
Yep.
It was a lot of fun.
I love movies.
And so a lot of that, though, helps you really understand how to frame things, and that's your goal, is to understand that. Well, this is interesting, and what you do in video is interesting. And I guess as a business person, I would sit back and say, that's great, Mark. Why do we care what Erin does, and how can that help us? So let's talk a little bit about that, because what you bring to the table is extremely powerful and very good, especially for our space on the social media side. So let's jump into this. Storytelling is important.
Yes.
And the number one reason storytelling is so important is because it's engaging, right?
Yeah.
So, there's so many groups out there that have a story to tell, and they do a good job of communicating that, and you're engaged. And you want to buy from that brand. So what should someone do before they start making plans to tell their story? How do they decide what the heck they should hit? I'm sitting there thinking, like, golly, I don't know what story I could tell. How do they go about that?
Yeah, so I see a lot of times organizations spending a lot of time, they find a story that's impactful, but it's, even if you tell that story in a good way, it doesn't always make an impact on people. It's not making the goals that you want to have. So before you even start planning or talking about it, you need to figure out what your goals as a business are, and then what your goals for marketing are, specifically, like, why are you marketing? Who you're talking to? What are you trying to tell them? And then you can get to, what is this project specifically? What story? Why are we telling this story? And that you have to have that very clear in your head, because that influences every decision you make from that point on.
Well, and that's kind of like a movie.
Yeah.
All right. So you and I were talking about, what was the movie that we were talking about Wonder Woman. Yeah. Because the beginning of the most recent Wonder Woman movie was great, and it ended like a flop. I told you, I said, I don't think I ever want to see one of those because it was bad. And you said something happened and they had to speed up the back end. So it's a lot like what we're talking about with a company here. Yeah. If you don't know your message, you really can't tell a cohesive story, and you could lose. Well, it's an investment, right? So I bet you could come and say, I'll do a bunch of video for you, but if you can't tell your story well, you're kind of wasting your money.
Yeah. If you don't know why you're telling the story, it doesn't matter. Or you can spend a lot of effort and make a lot of change going in a direction you don't even want to go.
Interesting. All right, cool. So what else do we know? Is there anything else that we need to do before we start trying to tell our story?
This all goes into everything that you do in branding or marketing, but just to know who your brand is and what your unique value that you're offering. So why anybody can tell like a story, but why are you telling this one, and what is your unique perspective on it? Because that's what people latch onto, and that's why they'll come back to you to tell the story next time, because of your unique value.
All right. How do I figure out my value? Yeah. Is there a trick to that?
I think spending some time to think about what your competition looks like, what other people are doing, but also just who you are, what feels right to you, as far as like if you had to pick just a couple of things. One exercise that I did one time was, if your business was a person, what would your person be like, or who would that person be? Oh, yeah. And what would they say, what would they do, and just create a really clear idea of what the personality of your business is, because sometimes that's a little different than who you are as a person. But your business has its own personality, and making sure that everything you're saying is coming from that personality.
There's a tip that I got once upon a time. I read this, that a CEO of a major organization, once at the beginning of the year, she asked her marketing team to come in and present her with the top 12 clients that they had. And then they would make appointments for that CEO to go visit those 12 clients throughout the year. Once a month, she'd go to them. And there was the one question she wanted to ask them was, why do you do business with us? Yeah. And I thought that was absolutely brilliant, because the value I think I bring, and I've learned this, is not the value, not the reason people buy from us. I'm thinking, gosh, people buy from us because they want to be on social media. What I found out is that people like doing business with us because of our responsiveness and how there's no ambiguity in our systems, right? They know what's going on. Our people are on top of those things. They don't have to wait. In fact, we have a new client that we picked up this week. They complained that the prior social media company just it was never responsive to her. They couldn't get in touch with her.
Yeah.
So after I heard that, I had to change my marketing material, right? So that is a great idea. That's another thing you do is go out and certainly ask your clients what your value is, and that can help paint that picture.
Yeah.
Anything else you should do before you start making plans to tell your story?
My last thing that I would say to make sure you have clear in your mind is who your audience is, and where this is going. So sometimes your audience on LinkedIn is going to be different than your Facebook. And are you making a story for Facebook and LinkedIn, or just LinkedIn? All that, it influences the tiny little things that make a big difference in the final product.
That is huge.
Yeah.
And obviously on LinkedIn, the people that are there are going to consume information a different way than the people are on Facebook, without a doubt.
Yeah.
All right, that's great. So I love those 3 tips. And if you're listening, hopefully you're taking some notes, because this is a great way to set up your next video that you can do. All right. So we got that down. We know that we got our plan. We know how to tell a good story. Now, how do you make sure that you don't stop telling that story? How do you consistently share that?
Yeah. So one of the cool things about stories is that they help people connect to you personally, and be engaged. And you don't want to lose that momentum that you're getting. If they connect with one story, you want to be able to keep following back up so that they stay personally connected to you. And a lot of people don't like hearing this, but the best way to get consistency is through systems, and creating a regular. One way to do it is just create a regular time on your day, maybe once a week, that you're thinking about storytelling. Where is my next story coming from? What am I doing? And also creating, if you're not the head person, if you're not the person talking on the ground, talking to clients, talking to customers, having a regular way for the people who are on the ground to come to you to be telling you these stories. So you're making sure you're collecting all those really great customer stories.
Okay, I'm sitting there thinking about, I'm a systems person. I love trying to come up with those sort of things.
Me too.
In fact, we share some ways that people can come up with content for their social. So, I'm sitting there thinking, I'm trying to put my head around, all right, if I work on my story once a week, air quotes, the thing that I wonder is, how do I know if I have something that is a story, right?
Yeah.
How do I put it in that frame?
Yeah, I think one of the biggest things the hardest thing I think about finding a good story is being able to get out of yourself and being able to figure out what your audience wants to hear. So if you spend a lot of time thinking about how am I going to explain my business, like what is my business, if you're thinking too much about yourself, people aren't going to care at the story at the end of the day. So making sure that you're focusing on a subject, on like a person or a interesting topic that people are interested in outside of your business, and your business can incorporate into that, but it can't only be on your business as itself, and that's one way to make it more engaging.
Good.
Also going back to those goals, making sure that you are fitting into those goals, and that it's actually getting you towards what you're actually trying to achieve. One last thing is that a lot of people forget is a call to action. You can get a whole lot of momentum with a story, and people can be really engaged, and you lose all that if you don't give people a place to go. So if people are like, wow, that's so cool, how do I find out more about that? You got to tell them how to do it, because once they've moved on, they're probably not coming back.
That's right. And you got to strike right then and there.
Yeah.
There's a lot of data that shows, even on social media, if you post something, you need to tell people what to do at the end of that post. Please like or comment or share.
Yeah.
Otherwise, they won't do it.
Yeah. And there's definitely been times when I wouldn't have thought of it, but then once they suggest it, you're kind of like, oh, I would like that.
Yeah, I'll do that for you.
Yeah.
All right, good. So must have a call to action at the end. I like the comment about goals, and you have to remember your goals, and it frames the story you tell insofar as that I'm looking at what my audience wants to hear, and sometimes I can say something that my audience wants to hear, but it doesn't help me meet a goal.
Yeah.
So that's not part of your story. You got to skip that. So you've got to remember, okay, here are my goals. This is my target audience. This is what I want to share with them, and making sure you follow it. Now, you can change your goals throughout the year because you're like, oh, that ain't working. I'm going to switch something else. That's good. But making sure that you have those goals to frame, or kind of it's the guardrails of your story.
Yeah.
What would be those goals? Awesome. Anything else about how you can consistently tell your story?
The The other thing I'd just say is making sure that when you're coming up with these plans and systems and stuff, that you're being realistic to your time frame. I know for myself, I can get excited about an idea and you go all in and you're like, I'm going to spend so much time on this, but trying to be very realistic with, okay, I'm only going to spend a little bit on this. How do I do this in the best way possible? How do I make sure these systems are efficient so that when you're knee deep in a really typical project, you don't have to be thinking about it, that you're not going, okay, now I have this whole other thing that I have to start to tackle right in the middle of it.
So realistic expectations are a big deal.
Yeah, for sure.
And that's something that my struggle, and this is a personal thing that I run into, is I get into the day, I try to plan my day out as best as possible, and things take longer than I think.
Yes.
They always take longer. I'm going to work with a client, I'm going to help them clean up a LinkedIn profile. I still like to do that because it's a lot of fun, and it always takes me longer than I think. So budgeting my time would be a wise thing to do in advance, especially me, because I could get so involved in it.
Yes.
But having those, again, almost like another set of guardrails, so I only spend this much time on it, and that's a good idea.
Yeah.
I never would have thought that. I'm glad that you think that that's important. Anything else about consistently telling stories?
Just planning out for months ahead, and making sure that, like I said, consistency is, it's best if you're only going to do it once a month, you do it once a month every month. And you're not going a couple of months without and then maybe 2 times a week and then jumping here and there, so that people know when to look for you, and know you can be reliable on that front.
So as a business owner, I'm sitting back and I'm listening to how important it is to tell stories, to connect with your clients. And the one thing that comes to mind is, what type of return should I expect from this? Is there something that I can attach, like, gosh, you know what, I should see X number of sales come from this type of work? Have you ever been able to answer that kind of question?
I don't have the specific stats for it, but I can tell you that, for example, if you even just look on TV, you'll see so many more commercials with testimonials in it. I'm thinking of like Verizon, Chick-fil-A. They literally are just commercials where it's like, hey, I'm Joe Schmo, and I like this product. And
Chick-fil-A's doing that a lot.
Yeah.
You know what? And I'm so glad you brought that up, because I can think of this one, and I think a lot of people have seen those.
Yeah.
They're sitting on a red couch in a white room, and someone tells a story of their experience at Chick-fil-A, and they are compelling.
Yeah, and these are $1 million, campaigns that they're doing here, because the data backs it up that telling customer stories really does make a difference.
So I would say, if you are producing content, and a lot of people are trying to produce content, they're trying to find engaging content. That's something we get a lot. How do I produce engaging content? Video is engaging, right? I think you and I would both agree to that. But you've got to be more purposeful, is really what you're saying. You got to be purposeful, know what you're going to say, make sure it meets your goals, make sure you're speaking to your audience, and then tell it in a compelling way. Yeah. Now, can you help somebody if I said, okay, here's my stuff, I have no idea how to put this in a story. Do you help people put that into a story? Can you gather all that together?
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of my whole process, where at the end of the day, I always ask people, like, what do you want your audience to walk away with? Like, what is that one sentence that you want people to walk away with? And that is like the core of what we're talking about.
Right.
But then at the end of the day, you're also just talking about who's doing this thing, why are they doing it, what's the context, all the basic elements of what you learned when you're in elementary school about how to tell a story. All that stuff goes into it, but just making sure that you're doing something in a direction that's powerful.
So I have to tell you, there's a story I'm in the middle of. I haven't seen all of it, but I am watching the Game of Thrones.
Yeah.
Right? And everybody out there has probably seen at least some of it or all of it.
I've heard of it.
Yeah, you know what we're talking about. And I'm in the 6th season. How many seasons are there? 7, 8? There's a lot.
It's all around that. Yeah.
And a character just showed up in the last episode that I haven't seen since like season 2. Mm-hmm. Right? I mean, this guy was a long time ago. And the first thing I thought of, how the heck do they write that?
Yeah.
To write this, to have that roadmap where you knew this guy was going to come. Now, maybe they didn't know.
I've actually heard some theory about that.
So were they making up their seasons as they go?
I have heard there's two different theories for how to write a story. So you either write it kind of with the end in mind, and you're like, how do I get this to go where I'm going, and how do I make sure the characters' arc are going in that right direction? And then the other theory is, just letting the characters, creating good characters and letting them kind of do what you feel like they would do. And I've heard that Game of Thrones was a good example of the letting the characters do what they do and kind of letting the story grow from that.
So it did kind of grow organically as the story. I will tell you,
that's what I've heard.
Here's the thing. Game of Thrones is like a soap opera. Yeah. And I hate to put it that way, but it's a gory soap opera with a lot of sex.
Yes.
A gratuitous sex at that. And I've always watched that and thought, this feels like a soap opera insofar as people don't really die. Yeah. People that died, all of a sudden they're back.
Yes.
That's very soap opera like. But what's amazing to me is that when these characters come back in a later episode, it's the same actors for the most part. They've had a couple little snafus like, that's a different actor. But most everybody's the same. Yeah. So they got to make sure that actor is available. Yeah. That may be part of the organic. Okay, that person is available. All right, we're going to put you back in the story. All right. So back to our real subject.
Yeah.
I do think that most business people don't see themselves as storytellers. Yeah. I think that they could probably say, okay, this is my client. These are the people I want to target. I do think that most successful business people know that. Yeah. This is where I want to go. These are the people that are buying my product. Knowing that you are someone that's available that can say, okay, here are the things you have all these elements. Let's put together a story. I think is really helpful.
Yeah.
Because I don't think I could come up with a story because mine would have too many shiny objects in it, right? I'd be running like, oh, this is great. Yeah. To have you available to put that together, I think is extremely valuable. And in the consultative approach that you have, I think is really cool. And sitting here talking with you, I could see, I could see putting together a story. You could tease it out because you understand. You can kind of see that end product. You probably see the world with letterbox format, right?
Exactly. Yeah. No, it's true. I'm a very visual person, so I'm already seeing the story or what it's going to look like before we even.
It's just not easy to do, and not everybody sees the world that way. So I think that's really awesome. So, all right, what are some key ways to tell if you have a good story? Right? How do you know if you've got a good story that you can share on social channels? Are there pieces of that helps me understand it?
Yeah. It really goes back to making sure you're fitting in all those guardrails that I was talking about make sure you got the call to action, that you're talking to your audience, that you've thought about your goals ahead of time. Those are the baseline must have. But then also just knowing kind of what stories other people are telling and making sure that you're having a slightly different angle and that that your video is not going to be going out into by itself. That's going to be alongside a whole lot of other stuff.
Oh, that's actually a really good point.
Yeah. And so making sure that you're putting yourself into a conversation. You're not just shouting out to nothing. So making sure that you kind of fit into that and have your own little unique take to it.
So I've had this happen. I'm sitting at a cocktail party and I'm having a conversation with someone and we're knee deep in something, and I'm thinking it may be some guy, and he and I are talking about the last Braves game because I connect with this person and we're talking Braves, and someone walks up and they automatically start talking about something totally different, and it's so incongruent. And this guy and I are looking like, well, okay, when are you going to stop talking so we can go back to the Braves? That's really what you're talking about.
Yeah.
Is I'm looking through my feed, if something's just way out of whack, it doesn't work, and it can become distracting and actually hurt your brand instead of helping your brand.
Yeah, and also if it's exactly like something they just saw 2 posts ago, they're just going to keep going.
Oh, interesting.
Visually and content-wise, it's got to be a little different.
There was a lot of comments I saw about marketing when the coronavirus hit and everybody started wearing masks, and that if you're running ads and the participants are not wearing masks, it could hurt you. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I thought that was very interesting. It was, me as like pop culture, I was very interested in watching commercials as they slowly shifted to being about COVID and seeing how fast, the first couple of organizations that were able to TV commercials take a while. And so people were just turning things around so fast. So Yeah, I think your social media, because it's so immediate, you can look out of date pretty fast
Right.
if you're not fitting into that larger conversation. And so I do think this is really in any type of social media stuff, but if you're not paying attention to what people are thinking about, what's on people's minds, you're kind of just ignoring, and you might not fit into where they're like looking to learn about.
So I keep looking at the clock. Because I have another question I want to ask you, and I don't care what the clock says. What would you tell an organization that the decision maker is not in touch with what's going on in social? How would you counsel that person to understand those nuances?
That is a tough question.
All right, I got a good one.
Yeah, I would say, everybody, no matter if they're top executive or just bottom of the ladder, they're interacting with media, and they have their own form of learning stories and doing stuff like that. Someone who's like, I don't get the social media stuff, maybe they're not on social media, but if you can put it into the context of what they are looking at, you can help them understand, hopefully, what that impact is on them. If you know even like what type of blogs they will listen to, or any podcasts or anything like that.
Sure.
They know if you can find that thing, if you can, people will be able to tell that it actually does impact them, and hopefully be able to see how that could change in social media as well.
Yeah, it's good. Larger organizations probably have a focus group that they can pass things by. So I have a focus group. It's not formal. It is a diverse group of people that are business people that also happen to be friends.
Yeah.
And I can send them stuff and say, what do you think? And that's worked pretty well. And I've had some people come back to me and say, yeah, you don't go there because you are missing this thing that's going on culturally right now. I was like, oh, that's a good point. So it slows you down when you do something like that, but it could save you from making a huge blunder.
Yeah.
So getting feedback is a way to kind of solve that.
I always say video is very powerful, and so that power can be used for good or evil. So just making sure that you're conscious, and you spend a lot of time and your budget on it, that you want to make sure that you're doing it in a smart way, but also because it's powerful. If you're saying something that people are not receptive to, it's more powerful in the wrong direction. There will be more pushed away. Yeah.
100%.
And might as well just not put anything out.
100%.
Yeah.
All right, Erin. You've got some great things that you brought to the table today. I love the information you've shared. If someone needs someone to help them tell a story, how can they find you?
And the best place to go for me would be my website, which is my last name, Goodier Creative, and then my business is Goodier Creative, so it's goodiercreative.com. You can also find me on LinkedIn and on Instagram. But yeah, I check all those things, so always reach out.
Awesome. Well, it's good to see you again. Thanks for joining us here today on How's Your Represence. You have so much info, and this is your second appearance, as a matter of fact, on How's Your Represence. And the reason is because you've got the topic is, topical. It is something that's congruent with what's going out there. And I think that, it might be fun to have you come back to criticize. Well, criticize may be the wrong word, but to talk about, there we go. It's a better word. To talk about some of the other things that are going on in the video world. And because we can learn from that too. I think, making mistakes is a great thing because it does teach you. And maybe that can be something to talk about. Otherwise, there's so many other things that we can tap into to look on the social media side and how video is impacting. So thanks for being here.
Yeah,
I appreciate you more than you know. Driving all the way up here too, and this got you out of the house. That's a good thing.
Exactly.
So for the rest of you folks, I want to let you know we continue to talk about our LinkedIn webinars. We have one coming up a week from now, so that's next Friday. I think it's at 1:00, I believe. But you can get there, and just by going onto our website, going to epresence.me, so it's epresence.me/webinars, and you'll find all of our information on those webinars. If you're looking for a job, you need to help LinkedIn really kicking for you because 90% of recruiters are on LinkedIn. It is the place that folks are going now to see whether they want to hire you or find new people, confirm that they should hire you. That's another thing else is 93% of buying decisions are influenced by social. Well, Hiring you is a buying decision. So let's make sure you're influencing folks to hire you as their buying decision. If you are looking for a higher ROI from LinkedIn, you got to know LinkedIn is 277% more effective at generating leads than Facebook and Twitter. Unbelievable number there. In the B2B space, you got to be on LinkedIn. Come join one of our webinars. We'll show you how to make your profiles work better for you. Here's the cost, $37.50. Now that's a deal. $37.50 is nothing. So come join us there. If you don't think it's worth your while, I'm going to refund your $37.50 and I'm going to pay you $20 for your time. $20 for your time, because why? Your time is valuable. And if it wasn't worth you spending $37.50, I will pay you for your time. I'm really confident that it's a great thing. So epresence.me/webinars. So thanks for joining us here on How's Your ePresence. Curious about ePresence? What else do? We manage personal, company, collegiate social media. We do consulting. We do training. We do a lot of great stuff. Just go to our website, epresence.me. You can see all that great stuff that we offer there. We'd love to help you out. We can make your LinkedIn. We can make your Instagram. We can make your Facebook pop. So give us a buzz. We'd love to give you a free consulting session that'll give you some feedback on how you can make your social work a little better. Well, let's get back to the show because we got to close out here. We broadcast live every month on the third Thursday at 3, but you can listen to any of our shows 24/7 by going to businessradiox.com and selecting the Gwinnett Studio. You can also find us on all major podcasts, just searching for How's Your ePresence. Be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel. We do a lot of our videos there. Please subscribe. Please subscribe to our YouTube channel. We love for you to be there. You'll get notified when we drop new content, and we do a number of live shows, so you'll get those notifications as well. Again, our website's epresence.me. That's epresence.me, because it's all about you. This show was promoted by Amanda Perch and produced by Mike Sim. And until next time, for my guest, Erin Goodier, I'm Mark Galvin, and this has been How's Your ePresence?